Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. May all be happy. May all be free from suffering or diseases. May all see goodness everywhere. Let no one be subject to suffering. Let there be peace, peace and peace everywhere by God's grace. This is an ancient prayer. I love this prayer. So the subject of my talk this evening is peace. P-E-A-C-E, peace. Yes. And I would like to explain what peace is. Swami Vivekananda was the first person who actually made the ideas of Hinduism known to the people of the Western world most effectively. Before him there were one or two people who tried, but they could not present the ideas as effectively as Swami Vivekananda did later on. Swami Vivekananda turned out to be the best orator in the Parliament of Religions, which was held in 1893 in Chicago. This is the first parliament of this kind, where representatives of all different religions were invited to speak. And Swami Vivekananda was a great orator. Besides that, the power of the divine incarnation Ramakrishna was working through him. He was also Sri Ramakrishna's messenger. And his oratory was so great that one newspaper of that time wrote about him. He is an orator by divine right, not just an ordinary orator. And what did he think of his oratory or oration? Well, like Bertrand Russell, he believed that the most abstruse ideas of philosophy or religion have to be presented in a language which will be understandable to everybody. So he used to say, I shall present the most abstruse ideas of Hinduism in a language which will be understandable to even children. And this is said at a time when using long drawn sentences, the speakers would speak and give academic talks. They would quote many scholars during their talks. But Swami Vivekananda was an exception. He was like Bertrand Russell. He also was in favor of giving talks which would be understood by everybody. So Swami Vivekananda, he is liked as an orator by many. So that's why one lecture bureau hired him and to speak on Hinduism and religion in different places of America. He accepted that offer because he had the idea that when he would return to India, he would like to start some religious organization named after Ramakrishna. And for that some money would be needed. So this, what he had allowance he would give by the lecture bureau, that would help him to start that, which indeed he did later when he returned from America to India. So while he was working for the lecture bureau, he had to give talks in different places. And among those places was Harvard University. He had to give a talk at Harvard University. After his talk, two students who had heard his lecture were talking with each other. One said to the other, "Did you like the speaker's talk?" And that other student said, "Yes, but what he said, I could understand everything." So that was a disqualification of Swami Vivekananda, that what he talked about was understood by people. It was not an academic talk. So he is my role model, Swami Vivekananda. In public speaking, he is my role model. And so far as religion or spiritual life is concerned, Sri Ramakrishna is my role model. So the subject of my talk is peace. Someone among the audience wanted me to give a talk on peace. What is peace? This word peace has been used by different religions. In Hinduism, it is called Shanti, and in Judaism, it is called Shalom, and in Islam, the very word Islam means peace. So this word has been given great importance by different religions. But what is this peace? It needs to be discussed. We have to remember that it is Hinduism which has accommodated 6 systems of religious philosophy. Just about all philosophical questions have been answered through those schools. And in one of the schools of philosophy, they talk about the pairs of opposites. This world is a pairs of opposites. Everything comes in this world as a pair. If there is goodness, there is badness. If there is joy, there is sorrow. If there is happiness, there is sadness. They all form pairs of opposites. We cannot understand only one of them unless we relate that one to its opposite. So I read about that when I was a young man. And then when I became a monk, I had the chance to visit one of the schools run by the Ramakrishna mission in India, which was started by Swami Vivekananda. And that school is in a place called Narendrapur near that big city, Calcutta. That place has been named after Swami Vivekananda actually, because his pre-monastic name was Narendra. So Narendrapur. And Swami, who was a great admirer of Vivekananda, named that place as after Swami Vivekananda, Narendrapur. And the Ramakrishna Order, which was started by Swami Vivekananda, does many philanthropic activities also, not just spiritual activities, such as running schools and colleges, giving help to the people who are subjects of natural disaster and all these things. So Narendrapur had a branch of the Ramakrishna Mission, which is called in India Ramakrishna Mission means the active wing of the Ramakrishna Order. And so there's blind boy school they ran. It was one of a kind. It was the best blind boy school in the entire country. And the principal of that blind boy school was a person who was born blind, but he was very meritorious. In spite of his blindness, with the help of Braille method and other things, he was able to acquire many degrees. So eventually he was made the principal of the Blind Boys Academy run by the Ramakrishna Mission in India. It so happened that I was at that time a monk working at the headquarters of the Ramakrishna Order, which is not far from Narendrapur, which is in Belur Math near Calcutta. That is our headquarters. And so I got the opportunity to visit that Blind Boys Academy in Narendrapur. And I met the principal also. So I asked him a question. I said, do you know what we call darkness? Because philosophically speaking, had he known darkness, he would have known light also, because both of them form a pair of opposites. So I wanted to test it. And he said, well, yes, I know darkness theoretically. I know that it is the opposite of darkness is opposite of light. Just as hot water is opposite of cold water. They are opposites. But I don't really know what they are. And you know that they are opposites of each other. That's what he told me. So, a person who knows goodness must know what is badness also. But what is peace? What is the opposite of peace? Peace is, in Sanskrit, is called Shanti, and also it is called Anandam. Anandam. What is Anandam? It is a word which is used to indicate divinity as it existed before the creation of this world. That divinity is called Sat-Chit Anandam. In English it is translated, the word Anandam is translated as bliss by many. most probably to indicate that it is not happiness only, bliss, anandam. So what is anandam? Anandam is something which is neither suffering nor enjoyment. Because it is beyond the pairs of opposites. Because before creation, only divinity existed, one without a second. Ekam eva advitiyam, one, only one existed. Advitiyam, there was no two. That's what divinity was. And that divinity was Anandam or Shanti. So Shanti or peace is neither suffering nor enjoyment. Same is true for Anandam. It is not neither joy nor sadness. I will give an example to help you understand what this peace could be. Yes. Let me suppose there is a person who is suffering from an attack of intense headache. So he is in a state of suffering. Then he is given by a friend some painkiller, some tablet. And by taking that tablet, after 1 hour his headache is gone. Now that his suffering is gone, is he in a state of anandam? The Hindu philosophy says no. He is neither suffering nor enjoying. It is like, is that person whose headache is gone, is he still suffering or enjoying? Neither of the two. He is neither suffering nor enjoying. He is in a state of relief from suffering and enjoyment, both. That's why they say he has found relief from his suffering. Not just relief only from suffering, but from enjoyment also. So peace is something like that, which is anandam. And anandam is, as I have already told you, is beyond two. Ekam eva, advitiyam. It is only one without a second. That is anandam, or shanti, or peace. That means that is divinity. And peace is beyond suffering. Our scriptures talk about 3 types of suffering: adhyatmika suffering, adhidaivika suffering, and adhibhautika suffering. Any suffering which pertains to our body and mind, that is called adhyatmika suffering. Any suffering which pertains to us and caused by other beings on this earth, that is called adhibhautika suffering. Such as a hungry tiger may come and attack me. So that suffering is caused by, that is, I will call it adhibhautika suffering. And then there is adhidaivika suffering. a sudden storm comes and that causes suffering. Or a lightning hits somebody, that is also suffering. And that is considered, they are called acts of God. So that is adhi-daivika suffering. So peace is beyond these three kinds of suffering. Adhyatmika suffering, adhibhautika suffering, and adhi-daivika suffering. Then, what is adhyatmika suffering? Let me discuss a little bit. Our books of Hinduism explain that thing. So, adhyatmika suffering consists of avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. Avidya means ignorance of one's own divinity. Everything is divine, whether one knows it or not, every person is divine, divinity. We are like so many waves in the ocean of, infinite ocean of divinity. As long as we identify with our forms, we think that we are different from the ocean, which is divinity. Otherwise, all is divinity. Sarvam khalidam Brahma. Everything is divinity. Brahma is a divinity. But a person who is not aware of his or her divinity has this problem. Ignorance, has the ignorance of his or her divinity. This is called avidya. And people also have their ego. I, that idea. One cannot be one's ego, because the owner and the object owned cannot be the same. If I own a house, I cannot be that house because I am the owner of that house. In the same way, I cannot be my physical body. I cannot be my sense organs, nor can I be my motor organs. Can I be my mind? No, I cannot be my mind either because I own my mind. But the idea of my individual existence is a thought of my conscious mind. So, that thought is I, or ego. So how can I be my ego? I am the owner of that ego. Truly speaking, I am divinity. So this egoism it causes suffering. And then raga means attachment. Attachment to certain objects or things or persons, that is called raga. That also causes suffering. When the object of attachment is gone, or there is a possibility that that object of attachment will not be there anymore, then there will be suffering. Which is called raga. And aversion is desha. A person is averse to certain things. Now some bugs have appeared. And those bugs, people have aversion to those bugs. They are having now they're going to the hospitals to have to take measures to prevent the attack of such bugs. Because we have attachment to our body and mind, we don't want the body and mind to be disturbed by those microscopic bugs, whatever their name is. And then there is aversion. A person doesn't like someone else, wants to avoid that person. I've seen such people. They don't like so many people that they create a small shell for them and they imprison themselves inside that shell. I don't like that person, I don't like that person. That's how their minds work. That is desha or aversion. And abhinivesha, that is clinging to life. The person clings to life. There is a story. There is a very elderly woman, and she used to make a meager living by collecting windfalls from a forest, and she lived close to a forest. So once there was a big storm and many branches of trees dropped to the ground, and she felt happy and went to the forest and started collecting those branches and putting them together. She made a very large bundle, thinking that by selling that she would get a little more money. She was happy. But then when she tried to lift that bundle, she found that it was too heavy for her. Her body was old. Then she lamented by saying, there is an idea in Hinduism that there is a king of death called Yama. Oh Yama, why don't you take me to your abode? I don't want to live anymore, she said. And then Yama appeared according to the story. And he said, I have come with me. Then that lady saw Yama and said, no, I didn't ask you to come and take me to your abode really. I wanted you to come and help lift this bundle and put on my shoulder. That's why I asked you. So this is an example of abhinivesha, clinging to life. The elderly lady wanted to cling to life. She didn't want to die. So these are 5 kinds of suffering which are called adhyatmika suffering. And if a person somehow or other can get rid of this adhyatmika suffering, then the other 2 kinds of suffering will also be over. That's what Hinduism teaches. They also cease to exist to a person who has been able to eliminate the adhyatmika suffering. So avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. If one can get rid of these things, then there won't be any more suffering for that person. So I have tried to explain to you that peace is anandam. And this word has been used by many. There was a war, the Second World War, and then the day came when there was peace was established. And I was a young boy at that time when that war was over, Second World War. So peace was established, then they are not fighting. That was mainly fought between the allies of England and allies of Germany. That was stopped. So that's how peace came. Was peace for them anandam? Did they give them bliss? Not bliss, but a state of relief. They didn't have to go to the battlefield and die. That relief was there. So this state of relief is peace, or shanti, or shalom, or Islam. That is peace. And one can get peace by going beyond one's ego. And if one person can go beyond his or her ego, then what remains is peace. Ego is like the form of a wave. The mind takes the form of a wave, so to say, and that is the ego. And that wave is one of the countless waves in the ocean of divinity. If a person's identification with his or her ego is gone, then what remains is that infinite ocean. That's what we are. We are that divinity. Beyond all misery, suffering, enjoyment? No, there won't be any worldly enjoyment at that time. That is peace. So, the subject of my talk this evening was peace. So, I have tried to explain to you that is what is peace. Peace is Shanti, peace is Shalom, peace is Islam. That means peace means divinity. We are all divinity, whether we know it or not. That's why in Hindu scriptures, there are so many prayers, they all end with the word Shanti. That means peace. Peace means divinity. Beyond all pairs of opposites, that's peace. It is like relief from suffering and enjoyment. That is peace. And this is our goal of life. If we remember that, then we will be experiencing our inherent divinity. That is the goal. That's why the scriptures of Hinduism teach that this idea is a great sentence which expresses the thought that we are divine. Sarvam khaludam Brahma, everything is divinity. Aham Brahmasmi, I am also divinity. What about you? Tattamasi, you are also divinity. That's something which we call the soul inside us. That is divinity. I am Atma Brahma. And these are called great sentences. And if these sentences are Mahavakyas in Sanskrit they are called, if these sentences are saved and the rest of the scriptures are lost, then we shall say that the scriptures of the religion which is called Hinduism, that has been saved. But if these sentences are lost and the rest of the scriptures be saved, then we will say Hinduism has been lost. Let us remember that. We are divinity. Thank you very much.